Is it still possible to build a budget PC for $500 that can still play all of the latest games? Absolutely, I think. Let's check it out. So CPU, I want to try to go for an older CPU, but still reasonably fast. We'll adjust if we need to. So let's take a look at the Ryzen 5 5600, and then that will also be able to get us a less expensive motherboard because we're kind of buying old stock. And so if we go ahead and slot in, let's see, what's the least expensive compatible motherboard right now? Looks like we've got an ASRock A520 motherboard. It's not a high-end chipset, so we won't get a million different slots and maybe not CPU overclocking, but we're just gonna be on the stock cooler and whatnot anyway, so I think that's gonna be fine. Let's go ahead and slot this in. And as far as CPU cooler goes, the Ryzen 5 5600 will come with one in the box. Now, the Ryzen 5 5600 is faster than the PS5 Pro CPUs, so it's not at all a bad CPU. Hopefully we can keep this in the budget. Let's keep going from here. Now, memory-wise, I'm a little scared we might have to go down to 16 gigabytes, which isn't the end of the world, but let's try to fit 32 gigabytes. And no matter what, you want to get 2 sticks of DDR4 to be running in dual-channel mode. So let's go 2x16, sort prices low to high, and see what our best options are. Looks like we can get DDR4 3200 CL16 memory, which is perfectly fast and is supported by this motherboard. And away we go. We've got our platform sorted out. Now, let's see if we can get in a reasonable graphics card into the budget. Now, this is going to be the hardest thing. We may need to go used here. Everything else I'm going to try to do new. Let's see what we can do. So if I was gonna buy new, I might try to get like a Radeon 6600, although at this performance tier, I would really like to have DLSS support, which this generation of AMD doesn't have FSR4, which would be reasonable. This would be stuck on FSR3. It's still $220. I really just actually don't think we're gonna be able to fit this into our budget. If I tried to go new from NVIDIA, like a 3050, they only have the 6 gigabyte versions in the price class that might work here, and those are significantly worse than the 8 gigabyte versions. Are they selling any 2060s new? Oh geez, those are over $300. This is the thing, guys, the budget GPU segment new kinda sucks right now. So let's take a look at Jawa.gg, and I can actually save you $10 off your first purchase here using code OWEN10. Huge thanks for them sponsoring today's video. Now at Jawa, you can buy all sorts of stuff, including used GPUs. And I did actually manage to find an RTX 2060, which, okay, it's a one-fan design, so might not have the greatest thermals, but it's actually gonna have reasonable gaming performance here, and we can get it in for only $140, which is vastly better than anything we were doing new. If I sort the performance of the RTX 2060, notice that this thing is actually going to be almost as fast as the RX 6600 that cost $220, but also this will have DLSS support, so we can upscale games to increase performance without much loss at all to image quality, which is nice. And then it's also going to be noticeably faster than something like an RTX 3050. It's even faster than the 8 gigabyte version, and the 6 gigabyte version is even worse. So I think this is actually going to get us now reasonable gaming performance at a very good price. So we are going to go ahead and slot in an RTX 2060. But we are going to add it and set in a custom price, because instead of spending $300 and some on a new one, not that we would do that anyway, we're going to spend $140 on one. But it's not this specific model here. Don't worry about that. I just wanted to get a 2060 into the build. Now, also at Jawa.gg, you can sell your old hardware to fund your upgrade, which is absolutely fantastic. You can get an instant offer to sell directly from Jawa. This is amazing convenience. They'll buy your GPU or your CPU directly, but you can also create your own listings, become your own seller at Jawa. You can even make it a little side side business. Not to mention the fact that you can, if you give up on this building your own PC business, you can find exactly what you're looking for with their PC Finder. You can shop by theme, by performance in certain games, by certain CPUs, GPUs, all of that. It's really great. Go ahead and check it out in the sponsored link in the video description and or pinned comment. Don't forget, again, I can get you $10 off your first purchase using code OWEN10. All right, so now we've got, because we went used on the GPU and got that great deal at Jawa for 100, actually, you know what? Because we can get $10 off the first purchase using code OWEN10, let's bring that down to $130. That means we're actually well within our budget, and we've got the most important components. RTX 2060 can still play the latest games, and the Ryzen 5 5600 is actually, like I said, faster than current gen gaming consoles like a PS5 Pro. Pretty cool. However, we still need to get some storage. We still need a case. We still need a power supply. So let's go ahead and look at the power supplies. This one can be a little bit rough if you're trying to go budget, because some of these things are basically a fire hazard waiting to happen. Now, if we sort prices low to high, we can also then check the PSU tier list I have linked here. And what you basically do is you search for the brand name and then you check the tier list. F tier is like, please don't buy this. E tier is also kind of like, probably don't buy that. Even D tier I'd try to avoid. If we can get into the C tier for a budget system, I'm like, okay, we're probably ready to go. So that's what I'm looking at here. You also need to be able to support as much power as your system will draw. Now, one nice thing here is the CPU and the GPU are the biggest power draws in the system, and we're only estimated our wattage here at about 314 watts. Now, again, the storage might add in a couple more watts, but, you know, a few case fans. But the point is, you know, even if we get a 500 watt CPU, PSU, I mean, we're fine. But we might even be able to do better than that. Let's go ahead and sort prices low to high and see what's available. Pretty sure these Thermaltake Smarts, a lot of them are E or F tier. Most Apevias are also E or F tier. This is not one of EVGA's better units, and it's only 400 watts. However, this Apevia Prestige, I've checked this before. Out of all of Apevia's power supplies, most of them are garbage and stay away, but the Prestige line is actually C tier, and this is 600 watts, 80 plus gold efficiency rating. And again, if you are doubting me on this, again, like I said, I usually stay away from Apevia. I know a lot of people know stay away from Apevia. But the Apevia Prestige one specifically, let me zoom in here a bit for you. That was too far, okay? Apevia Prestige is actually C tier rated here, so we should be okay on this one. So that's going to get us a power supply that can do the job. And is probably not going to explode on us. That brings our budget a little over $400. What can we do now? We do need some storage. So storage, we're definitely going to want to get an SSD. And I'm going to just kind of say that with game sizes nowadays, we could, you could get by with a 500 gigabyte, but I don't like that. I'd much rather have a terabyte. So I'm going to look for at least 1,000 gigabytes of storage space. Sort prices low to high. Now, SATA SSDs can still get the job done, but honestly, I'd rather save those for additional storage you're adding in later. And I'd rather fill our M.2 slot, although this M.2 looks like it's just going to be M.2 SATA. Can we do anything for even another $1 or $2? Okay, we don't actually even have PCIe 4.0 support on our system. However, this one will actually... in other words, that's kind of overkill, but I'm actually looking at it and it just seems to be really well priced. So it looks like we can get this SSD for $50, 1 terabyte, reasonable speeds, and away we go. So with that in mind, okay, we do not have a lot of money here left for our case. So that means we're gonna basically fit in the lowest priced case money can buy, but we will be in our $500 budget. Sort prices low to high. Looks like the cheapest case is $34, and I think that's pretty much exactly how much money we have in our budget here. So this isn't going to be the world's most amazing case, and it is very, very small, but I think our parts should fit, and that would bring us right into, well, okay, $509, but I think we did a reasonable job here. So if we go ahead and take a look at the build overall, I think that this is actually going to have a reasonable amount of gaming performance. You're not on the most modern CPU platform, but there is still some upgradability here with like the 5800X3D for the future if you needed to. You do, again, like have some upgradability and you could fit in some more storage. We've got actually did fit in the 32 gigabytes of RAM. I think we did a pretty decent job here. Now, on the case, if you don't like the look or the size of this case and are willing to spend a few dollars more to get something nicer, you can go for that. Now, I do not, unfortunately, have the budget in my videos to buy all of these parts, wait for them to ship, and by the time I build it, prices will have changed and all of that, but I do want to give you a rough idea of the gaming performance here. So I am going to throw together a build with 32 gigabytes of DDR4, and a Ryzen 5 5600 CPU, and an RTX 2060. Some of the other specific, it'll be in a different case, and etc. But the components that are really affecting the actual performance, I can build for you here, and now we can test it out in some games and see how it does. All right, so here's the build. It's not the same case. This is a Corsair 4000D Airflow that I have laying around. This is a bit more expensive, but not super high-end. Comes with a couple of stock coolers. I didn't go overboard or anything. And again, you could have bought a different case than the one we slotted in there. It's kind of a placeholder as long as it fits the parts. I have a different RTX 2060. This is a dual fan rather than single fan. It's not going to really have a major impact on performance, maybe more just on temperatures and a little bit of the noise. And I do have the Ryzen 5 5600 here with the stock cooler. I have the X version of the CPU. It's a couple of percent difference, so nothing will really be able to tell in benchmarks. And 2 sticks of 16 gigabyte DDR4, getting us out to that 32, just like in the other system. Again, different motherboard, but overall the gaming performance of this is going to be the same. The important parts, the CPU, the GPU, and the RAM, are basically the same specs we just built out there. So let's plug this thing in, run some games, and see how it does. I do not play Fortnite, but I just loaded into a game because apparently this is like the biggest game out there by monthly active users and whatnot. So how are we doing? Well, we're at a 1080p output and getting well over 100 FPS. I have been noticing a few little frame time blips. Hey, somebody's chasing me down and I haven't actually tried to loot or play the game. Anyway, the frame time blips though, I believe are shader compilation stutter. So that's just because this is Unreal Engine and it's my first time kind of playing through the game at all. Hey, maybe I should try to get a weapon. Then maybe I could actually fight the guy. But if I remembered what the buttons do in this game, I have not fired this up in years. Anyway, but yeah, you can see the frame rate numbers. We are well over 100 FPS, looking pretty good. However, at what settings? Well, let's actually check out, because what I had is I pretty much had the game just default to some settings, except it defaulted to using Unreal Engine's TSR upscaler, and I switched it over to DLSS. Right now we're on DLSS balanced for a 1080p output, which is a little aggressive, but newer versions of DLSS do look quite good. Our frame rates are so high though, I think I'm going to try switching it to quality instead of balanced, because I think we actually just have the headroom to get away with that. So if we go ahead and do that, you can see that we are still well over 100 FPS. And actually, there's a little bit of GPU wait time I can see, which means that here we could probably even go with heavier settings on the GPU a little bit, because it seems to be the potentially the CPU that things are waiting on. So yeah, definitely able to play this game at well over 100 frames per second. I'm sure if I wasn't running away from all the enemies and had more people on screen, that maybe things would get a little more hectic and frame rates would drop a little bit. But overall, seems like the game is very, very, very not just playable, but you could be very competitive at these settings if you knew how to play the game, which I don't. If I actually just went to like a native resolution at 100%, can we get all the way to 100%? Well, let me slide to 100% resolution, guys. Come on. Maybe, is the graphics menu here just kind of weird? Well, I was going to try, oh, there we go. 100%, okay, we got it. 100% resolution on CAA. So this is now native 1080p if you don't want to be using any upscalers. But like I said, the newer versions of DLSS look good enough that even at a 1080p output, I would be fine with using DLSS quality at least. But like I said, well over 100 FPS, playing some Fortnite. I will shoot at a tree because that's probably the only thing I'm gonna hit. And what if you're not just playing competitive games though? But we've established this system will absolutely crush competitive games at 1080p. What if instead we are playing more big AAA games? That's where I'll have to make some more concessions, but I think we will do okay. All right, I fired up Clair Obscure Expedition 33, a big Unreal Engine 5 game, my favorite game of 2025, and looks like we can hit around 60 FPS. It does average and dip a little bit below that at times, but for the most part right around that 60 FPS line. But at what settings? Well, we are at medium settings preset with DLSS quality enabled, but again, I do find that the newer versions of DLSS looking very good even at quality settings on a 1080p output. And again, we have to make some concessions for the build in this price class. If I went to a native 1080p resolution using TSR, it's gonna be a little bit more like the 40-something FPS range. So, like I said, I really do think the DLSS quality looks just about as good as the TSR native, if I'm being honest. Like, for example, right now, I don't know if you guys can see it, but there's some like flickering in the wood planks in front of us using the native TSR implementation. And oftentimes, I haven't tested this exact scene, oftentimes DLSS will actually clean some of that up, even compared to the native rendering resolution. And actually, you can see that here. See those boards in front of us are actually looking totally solid. In motion, there's still a little wobbling. But yeah, in many ways, DLSS quality can actually improve on the native rendering, sometimes loses a tad bit of detail, but generally actually more stable image than what we actually get at native in this game. And like I said, over 60 FPS here, we could get into some combat and whatnot, but I think you guys get the general idea. Even on Unreal Engine 5 game, we can be around 60 FPS as long as we play at appropriate settings and all that. Again, with some dips. It isn't a massively powerful system or anything like that. And let me go ahead and dodge that attack, and away we go. Let's test out some other games. All right, I decided to fire up Cyberpunk and see how we could do. I've decided to go ahead and start out at, I can't see the settings menu because of my overlay. We're starting out again at a 1080p output, but using some DLSS. What I went ahead and did is I went to the high preset, but instead of using FSR, which is what defaults on that option, I went to DLSS using the newer transformer model and using DLSS quality. So DLSS quality, high settings with the 1080p output, and away we go. Now give that a second to settle in. It's looking like our overall average FPS is over 60 FPS here, and I did fire up the newer Dogtown area of the game from the Phantom Liberty expansion, just to make sure we were in one of the more demanding, not necessarily the most demanding, but one of the more demanding areas of the game. So looking like we can hit pretty decent overall frame rates here. Now, of course, we could try to play at native rendering resolution, which by turning off all of the upscaling, and that will be a little bit heavier. Give it a second to kind of kick in. Yeah, it looks like we're kind of in the mid-50s. I do overall think, again, with that newer transformer model, you're not really losing much on the image. By doing that. Also, it is helping rein in the VRAM a little bit here. At these settings, we can be right on our kind of, like I said, we only got 6 gigabytes of VRAM in this GPU, so we do need to be careful with that and lowering that internal rendering resolution just a little bit using the DLSS quality settings. I do think is probably the way to go here. Helping us make sure we're within that buffer. So yeah, it looks like Cyberpunk, even in the newer Phantom Liberty areas, certainly going to give us a very playable experience and all of that. Let me go ahead and try out one more kind of recent game. Okay, I have Doom the Dark Ages up and running, and I think we are now within our VRAM buffer, but that was a bit of an issue. So that's my main concern with this particular graphics card. If you're using it for newer AAA games, is the 6 gigabytes of VRAM buffer is just not quite as much as we would really like here. And it does mean that we'll have to, I think I need to throw my shield here. It does mean that we're going to have to make more concessions, and it will be a bit rough in certain games. So what I had to do here is go all the way down to the low settings, and I'm using upscaling quite aggressively. Because without doing that, I was having a bit of trouble. Now, we could try so basically I'm at the lowest settings this game can go. Now, I will say that this game still actually looks pretty reasonable at its lowest settings, given the fact that even its lowest settings are ray tracing at all times, etc. Things looking a little bit blurry on the upscale, and we're still not completely locking to 60 FPS in this. This is one of the bigger combat encounters of the game. But it is absolutely playable, at least, at these settings, which is good. So anyway, overall, my thoughts on this build is, like I said, it is going to absolutely be just fine in any of the esports titles. Even most AAA titles are going to be okay, but oftentimes you will be upscaling. Good thing that we do have access to even the DLSS 4 models and things like that. To make that upscaling still look pretty reasonable. So, able to play the latest games and all that. I am a little bit worried about the longevity of the latest AAA games at 6 gigabytes of VRAM. And like I said, like in games like this, we're at really the lowest settings you can possibly go to try to be around 60 FPS. We're at 1080p output using DLSS performance mode, and at low settings with the texture pool size as low as possible to try to stay just within that 6 gigabytes of VRAM window. Overall, I do think you would get a lot for your money by spending more on the build, and I do have some other recent videos, perhaps I could link, that do include a build that goes up to more like $800, and I've got a $1,000 build, and all the way up to an $1,800 build, and you certainly continue to get more for your money as you go. But this, like I said, playing the latest games, esports titles are running great. Newest AAA stuff, you're gonna, make concessions, but hey, I still think this is looking and playing pretty well. Despite what the settings say. Anyway, hopefully you guys enjoyed the video, found it useful and or interesting, and I hope all of you have an excellent day.